Thank you. I am very excited to be here. I'm very excited for this conference. I'm a first-time person at the Gebser Society, so I'm delighted. You've also been carrying this torch and doing this for all this time, and I'm a latecomer, but I'm thoroughly delighted to be part of this. I'm also excited to be back at CIIS. I'm a graduate in philosophy, and so it's fun to be back here as a presenter. I'm going to talk about integral coaching, a model that I created based on Jean Gebser's structures of consciousness. I'm a coach. I've been a coach for 25 years. I've been teaching coaching for 20. And so my presentation is to give you just a very overview of coaching, just a definition, and then a bit of my journey to integral coaching and Gebser, and then to invite you into some exercises I use, and I've been using Gebser's model for 15 years now. And so I've been working with people who know, of course, nothing about Gebser, and helping them get some idea. So in my coach training, they leave having some understanding, and so I'd like to share, not talk about it, but actually invite you to do some of the exercises. It's late in the afternoon, and after all, this is an integral presentation conference. So, and then to do one tool. So that's my agenda today. So the International Coach Federation is the gold standard for coaching, has 18,000 members worldwide, and it has this definition of coaching. Coaching is a partnership with clients in a thought-provoking creative process, lots of room there, creative process, that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So my journey to integral coaching. In 1993, there was a landmark study in healthcare by David Eisenberg, and he said that millions of people were spending millions of dollars on complementary and alternative interventions and taking money out of their pocket. Well, you can imagine what this did to the healthcare and hospital systems of America. All that money was not coming to them. And so every boardroom, I could probably say this, almost every boardroom I would say, in every healthcare system was saying, we want one of those holistic centers. And it was at a time, I was a student here, and it was a time where I thought, I'm perfectly positioned to really make an impact in this field. Because I'm a nurse, I had conventional medical training, nursing training, and then I'd spent about 20 years by then in the complementary and alternative world, and then I also had done a lot of organizational development. So I thought, bingo, this is really a place for me. So when I started to do the projects, and I did get them, and I would do the business plan, and then people would say, well, you know, we don't know exactly what to do, so come here. So I'd live there for 9 months and do the startup. But what I realized was I wanted, in my model, I wanted someone to do what I'd been doing, because by then I'd been a coach and was doing, I could call it health coaching, however you define that, wellness coaching, life coaching, and I couldn't find nurses because they wanted nurses, they wanted people with licenses, even if they weren't a healthcare system. They wanted coaches, and they wanted, and I wanted someone that was integral, or at least holistic. So I couldn't find those people. That was 1994, 94, 95. I couldn't find those people. So I thought, okay, I'll train them, which sounded kind of easy, but then I realized I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I didn't know conceptually how I was really working. I knew that people move fast. I knew that people really could get to decisions very quickly, and I knew that they were aligned. Those decisions, those choices that people made were so aligned with all parts of them. But I really didn't know, I didn't have a conceptual model. So, da-da-da-da-da-da. One of my colleagues, Rudy Valentine, talked to me about Gene Gebser. And when I first heard his model, I went, okay, next. And then I had it in another class, and it was at that very time that Rudy taught that I was searching for what what my conceptual model would be, because I knew by then I had 2 nursing degrees, I had a master's in life transition counseling, I was here at CIIS in philosophy and religion, as it was called then. I knew I used everything, and I realized I couldn't say, well, do it all. So when I started thinking about what model will I use, there was Gene Gebser. And it was so helpful to think about the structures of consciousness. It really helped me organize my tools, what I was actually doing, because it's such a giant open model. And so that was about 15 years ago. So over these years, I think I've been getting the model that I teach tighter and tighter, and having better words and ways to express to people that have never heard about Gebser, don't really want to think much about philosophy, but how to really come from this place. Because what I found is that people make these better decisions because, of course, they're using all the structures of consciousness. And so now I have a way to talk about it and to teach it. So that's what I'm very excited. I couldn't teach coaching if I didn't have Gebser's model. I just don't know what I would use because it's so perfect. And I mean, one example was, I think the biggest, longest time I was working with a student in class, and she had spent 6 years thinking about a decision she needed to make. So she was in the mental and back and forth, and she was, of course, driving her friends and family crazy. In a 20-minute exercise that addressed these structures of consciousness, she came to the right decision, and I know her, and she is still in that decision, and it was perfect for her. So that's why I'm so excited about this process and helping people understand how to do it and really how to use that model, and then also how to teach coaches that they can help their clients use it. So I talk with the students about the archaic, the magic. I must admit, in my book, I have changed it to intuitive, because when I was trying to get it paid for at one hospital system, they said, you cannot use the word magic. So in my book, I use intuitive/magic. So then the mythical, the mental, and then my logo for my company, my Wisdom of the Whole Coaching Academy, is this, which I really see as the 4 structures of consciousness coming together and then being the integral. So I talk to my students about how past structures are coming back. You know, we have the meditation, yoga, we have magic, Harry Potter, the $1 billion man as they call him now, and energy work. We have mythical, story. Story is a really big part of coaching. So there's Instagrams and Twitter and StoryCorps. So people start thinking, oh, okay, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then I talk about the structures in human development. And I know, Gebser, I'm sorry, but I don't talk about it as a developmental model, but I do talk about it that we could be passing through these structures. The archaic, the intuitive magic, the mythical, where kids stop wanting to see picture books, but they really want stories. They really want to, and they make up stories, and they try, you know, they play house. And then the mental, where older children can really understand concepts. And then I invite people into the land of and, which I have talked about including, embracing, and transcending. So I also talk about how we go through these structures every day. So, you know, we're maybe in the mental now, and that place where we're just between alpha state, really, where we're just not dreaming yet, but not asleep but not awake, so that dreamlike state. And then the theta, which is more like the deeper dreaming. And then the archaic, the theta, or the delta, I'm sorry. So when people start hearing this, they start saying, well, maybe it isn't so strange. Maybe there's something, you know, it kind of resonates with them. They have a theoretical understanding, and then they have some experience in their waking, sleeping moments, in their own development, and with family. So they start thinking, okay, well, this doesn't sound so weird after all. And then I do an exercise where I ask them, and I'm going to invite you to do it too. So if everybody would go over to that corner of the room, you can just put down your coffee and drinks.
Is this a field trip?
Yes, this is a field trip to the archaic. So if you kind of stay in that corner, if you could. Great. Okay, so let's just take a minute and breathe, ground. Maybe close your eyes and go back in time to the archaic. With this group, I don't have to talk much about it, but that connection to source, all is well. Really experience as much as you can, as much as we can in these days, that archaic structure of consciousness. Okay, and now when you're ready, if you'd move to the other corner, imagining billions of years going on, move to the magic structure of consciousness. You might want to be in circles in this one, because you're a tribe now, right? So we're a tribe. So this is that dreamlike state, not a lot of language. Close your eyes again and really go to that magic structure of consciousness if you can, as much as you can. Great, and now, again, many, many years, and if you could go to the other corner of the room by the door, to the mythical structure of consciousness, all the way to the front door of our room here. Feel the passing of time. So you don't need to be in a circle here. You can be any way you want. This is the mythical. So there's gods and goddesses and archetypes. So in this structure, imagine yourself being a myth or an archetype. A little more language, can move around, yeah, interact. But just take a minute and really try on the mythical structure of consciousness. How is it different from where you come from? Great. And now go to the other corner of the room, over there by the tables or chairs. And this, of course, is the mental. Another hundreds of years going by, and please line up in this structure. Be in lines. No cutting in lines. Straight lines, good. Oh, some people are not in straight lines.
Shape up.
Oh, good. It's hard to do this at CIIS, I see. Okay, so now just take a minute and close your eyes and experience the mental structure of consciousness. The efficient mental structure of consciousness. Great. Now come into the center of the room. I don't quite know how we're going to do this, but the center of the room is going to be the integral structure of consciousness. So, good, yeah. So now experience the integral structure of consciousness. Be aware of all those different structures. See how they feel from this middle place. Transparent. You can be in all these other structures. You can hold them, however you think about that. Just take a minute to be in the integral structure of consciousness. Great. Now find someone and just share, 2 minutes each of what that experience was like for you. You learned something new, if it was new insights to the structures of consciousness or the integral. So just take a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, just to share with someone by you.
Well, it's the first time I actually visualized, use space, whereas now it's hard to get certain in my mind, it's kind of helpful to think of pulling all the other structures in different places, locating here. That's what I meant. Put your body
so I came in with a group of
sophomores, mentalize everything.
just
And if you actually physically just do it, even though it's very simple.
how the magic goes. A straight line.
like focus, point of emphasis, went from introduced how she got into
Standing there meditating, it's not like that. Now, standing in a straight line, yeah.
Okay, great. So can we come together again as a group?
So I've been curious about
Okay.
Thank you for playing.
at least
So some of the things that I do when people are in the magic structure of consciousness, I have them pick the name of their tribe. And I make this a longer exercise where people can walk around and can kind of, interact from these different structures of consciousness. And then I ask people what they feel like when they get to the integral. So I'm curious in terms of if other people have used things like this. I mean, I'm really interested in learning what others are doing and kind of helping people get Gebser. And what your experiences were in kind of experiencing the structures of consciousness as you walked through time here. Who would like to share? Yeah.
One thing that's been a really helpful tool for me in my life, and that I also talked about just now, is associating certain mutations of consciousness with parts of my body and with my chakra system. So, I definitely experienced like mythical. Yeah. Maybe it's a female. Maybe it's a female. But it's been really helpful for me to apply these mutations of consciousness to the female part of all to my grounded daily life. So yeah, so I feel like this is maybe obvious, but just so the mythical mutation of consciousness I associate with my heart chakra, I was saying to Corey here that, sometimes I get caught up in my emotional life and like the story of my life and I get really depressed, but it was interesting to notice in that exercise that, I can get caught up in my emotions in this heart space, but that's not my whole experience. I can simultaneously perceive my experience through my mental capacity, which is like a very sharp and sort of clean experience. So yeah, and it helps a lot to, I think it could help people who haven't been exposed to Gebser, to, people that are just in the everyday practical world, to check in with different parts of their body and to experience different modes of perception through their body.
That's a good point, because I often, if I describe Gebser as structures of consciousness, you did actually talk about the ascending seats of organ emphasis, from the viscera to the heart of the head. And I often describe the mutation of consciousness as kind of a collective Kundalini experience.
Yes. Yes.
and also I say, well, just because we've reached this mental consciousness or beyond, doesn't mean we have to do away with our visceral being or our hearts. It's like that includes the whole body as organs of our being. That's a much more literally embodied way.
I've developed a whole series of exercises, experiential exercises, and talked about a variety of settings, but using very large pieces of paper and having every person draw a large spiral, and then through a guided series of questions, have them put images and words on the spiral, with questions addressed to the archaic magic. And so everyone has a spiral map, sort of, and it can be very, very powerful.
And people get it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they may or may not walk away with a sense of Gebser's categories, but they've got a map of their lives.
And do you map on the spiral, like the arcade is in the center and the mental's on the edge?
That is how it is done, yes. And if it's an advanced group, we can discuss, well, we could start with the archaic at the outside of the spiral, and we could travel through a tunnel into the integral and walk through it.
Whoa.
And there are other topological projections of the map that can be very strong.
Something that surprised me that I was not expecting to happen when we congregated in the archaic corner. I felt this concentration of energy in this group that when we're sitting scattered all around the room, it gets watered down. But when we were all standing together, it was like there was this palpable energy field that reminded me of the Margaret Mead quote about, nothing great happens except by a small group of people starting. And it was like, yeah, it's this group.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I just presented in Naples, Florida to healing touch practitioners, and I did this. They had extraordinary experiences. I mean, they could feel, they really got it. I mean, much more than if I just, offered this to people that don't know anything. They didn't know anything about Gebser, but they were so tuned in energetically that they had that same experience. They could almost felt like a heartbeat was what they were saying. So anybody else want to share? Okay. So don't sit down yet. So I do this with students, and then I do it on the phone as well, because I teach on the phone. So I have people in their, their rooms or wherever they are, and then, and like one person, people often when they get to the interval, they say things like, oh, I can be all of myself. It's such a relief. So even that kind of, awareness, I think, phew, that's great. So after that, then I follow up with an exercise, which I invite you to do with me as well. It takes about 10 minutes. And so for this, I'd like you to choose some goal that you want. Some goal, could be a project, it could be school. Any kind of goal that you really you really want to accomplish. And to see that is like 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, you got a goal? Okay. And then the opposite of that goal is 1, which is, let's say you just have the beginning ideas of something, of that goal. So now I'd like to invite you to stay somewhere where you could walk forwards 10 steps. And you can be in the middle too. You don't have to be at the very edges. You can, any place you can just have 10 steps to walk forward. So this is kind of a combination of a mental 1 to 10 scale and then a way to integrate the other structures of consciousness. So imagine, so this is an imagine, so here's the magic. Imagine a 1 to 10 scale in front of you, or 10 steps, like an imaginary line in front of you. And then stand where you are right now. You might not be at 1. You might be at 2 or 3, or you might be at 5, or you might be at 1. There's no wrong way. But if you started the project already, or you have some, you have some, you've done some of the project, then maybe you're a little more than at 1. But if you're at 1, it's fine. So find the place that you are right now. As I said, it might be 1. Some people are moving up. Yeah, okay. Okay, great. Everybody has where they are now. Okay, so again, just close your eyes. Take a breath, ground. And check in to see how aligned this project is with your sense of purpose, your reason for being, your values. Is it 100% aligned? Is it 50%, 10%? But just notice to yourself how aligned it is with your sense of purpose. And then when you're ready, this is a pretend game, so you just walk toward the next step. You don't know you don't have to know how you got there. So take a step forward toward 10. Just take 1 step. And again, it's not a to-do list. And just experience, how does this feel? What's happening at a body sense? What images are coming, if any? What's the thought? What's the feeling? Again, bringing in those other structures of consciousness, those subtler ways of knowing. And then when you're ready, take another step forward. And again, just close your eyes and what's different? What's the same? Getting closer to your goal. And check in with the mental, the archaic, mythical, the magic parts of yourselves. And when you're ready, take another step forward. So what's the same or different in this place? And again, another step forward. Closer to your goal. Another step. For those of you that are already at 10, just really enjoy 10. So what's happening here? And another step. One more. If you're at 10, just really enjoy that 10, what it feels like. Another one. Notice what's the same, what's different. One more. And then if you're not at 10, go all the way to 10. Great. So feel 10. Anchor it. Okay, great. So again, pick a neighbor and just share a minute or two with what your experience was like. How was it to use those structures of consciousness in moving toward your goal?
It's all very mental, you know, so you can just one brain overwhelmed, so you just can't.
Because there were, I mean, theoretically we can do 10 steps, right? There's only 5 levels. Yeah.
That's, you get more into the And then next step.
Okay, let's come together again. And everybody can sit down. Thank you for standing up all that time. Oh, good.
I was ready to move around, you know, so I can't be in my.
Okay, can everybody sit down now? Great, thanks. So when people experience this exercise, they kind of get it. Oh, there's a value from, you know, I do a lot more cueing because I don't have to do it with you guys. It's so wonderful. But I do a lot more cueing with them. And, but they do realize, my gosh, there is value to this. Anybody want to share an experience they had with the exercise? Yeah.
As I was getting closer to 10, I started out at 7. And as I was getting closer to 10, I noticed that my body was sort of getting slightly tight. And when I was at 10, I noticed it got really tight. And that was very intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's, I've never seen anybody report it, you know, the same thing. Sometimes at 7, people go through a process where they think, oh my gosh, this is really going to happen, or 7, 8, they have some different experiences, and thanks, yeah. So, you know, if I were your coach, then we would just explore what that means. Yeah. Yeah.
I found it really interesting that different parts of my body were experiencing different things, like as I was progressing. So, as like around 2 or 3. I was feeling my heart area constrict, and I was feeling like fears coming up. But at the same time as that was happening, I could feel like the archaic magical area is opening up. And as I progressed, it felt like, oh, like, you know, as I achieve this goal, I'm connecting more with the community and with my deepest root self, you know, and I could feel that, but then I was feeling like this sort of expansion and constriction of my heart. So. Just so interesting how, yeah, it was like very complex experience for me. It was, yeah, really interesting.
I did this in India with the largest healthcare system in the country, and all the corporate and all of the managers of the hospital, all the chief nursing officers, and it was interesting. One man came up, he said, "You shocked me." You know, he'd never experienced anything like that. But so people really get it using these kind of exercises. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and I really appreciate your attention and doing this with me, because I know it's a little outside maybe of how it's maybe done here, but thank you very much. Are there questions? We have about 5 minutes if there's, yeah.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Sure.
And that is, I do a lot of consulting because I live in the state capital, and so, you know, and I have a mortgage. But, I'm really encouraged to see you do this using games, because I work with so many people who are drawing from sources that are really suspect in terms of their research and their ethics and their world orientation. So I'm really deeply encouraged to see someone doing this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have an article going out in Coaching World. It goes to 18,000 people, coaches, and I'm presenting Gebser and why coming from making decisions from these structures of consciousness or whole person, you have to translate, you know, how we all do, perspective really people will make better decisions. So I'm quite excited about it, and thanks for that. Yeah.
Just a comment you asked about other methodologies that might in some way be analogous. This is perhaps a little far afield, but it actually I don't think so. I mean, I've been a Waldorf teacher, and you put up the slides of the different stages of human development, the infant, the child, and of course Steiner has a threefold model of the human being: the will, the feeling, and the thinking. And the key to Waldorf education is that you move. Well, first of all, you don't educate the child too early. You let them, you hold them as long as possible in that archaic, illusionary consciousness. You know, you're not cutting them off to, or even, putting iPhones in their hands at God knows what. So you let them be there. And then as the young child learns primarily through the will and imitation, the magical of just doing things before the intellect is awakened at all. That's in the kindergarten, in the early stages. And then in the grade school, it's the relationship to the teachers and fairy tales and myth. The feeling life is the respect and love for the teacher. That all flowers. And it's only when you get to the high school. I mean, you're doing your spelling and your academics all along, but that's not the accent. And it's only when you get to the high school that the mental level starts coming into its own, and you get these independent thinking. And then the crown is that after the high school, you go off into the world, and hopefully you are developed as a whole human being. And I think, although it's not necessarily an exact analogy, I think very much the same principles are at work, and there's an image of the whole human being. And that's why Waldorf students in schools are an island of sanity in what is otherwise a very contorted and distorted educational system. So I think that's one very effective and important system of education that is homologous to this to get using the same principles.
Thank you. Yeah. So I see that our time is up, and I don't want to keep everyone. Thank you very much.